Hey everybody, it's Joel and welcome back to Up North Aquatics. Today's an exciting one. We got part 2 of the 410 planted tank rack. So I did get an order from Amazon with some goodies, and here's what we have. For substrate, fluorite. For filtration, 4 nano sponge filters, which I do have 4 running this whole bottom shelf here, and they are great. And then 100-watt heater. I'm going to try heating one of the tanks in the middle and see if it doesn't radiate over to the other tanks. Also, only one of the fish species I'm breeding needs to be at a higher temp, so that's what that's for. And then just hardware, fittings, airline, and some airline regulators to control the pressure. So step 1, I'm going to get this substrate in the tanks, and then I'm going to start filling them up, and as they're filling up, we'll work on the hardware for the filtration. So I'm going to put this in there and I will check right back with you. Alright guys, and there it is. Probably wondering why only half the tanks are fluorite. It's because I'm only going to grow stem plants or rooted plants in the back. Everything else is going to be floating, or maybe like some moss or something on the bottom. So in the front, once these tanks get up to temperature, which they're just going to sit down here for a day or two, I have all this gravel that's been sitting in the pond that's going to fill in the front half of the tank. And I'm going to do that for 2 reasons. 1, save me money on fluorite. I don't need it in the whole tank. I'm not going to spend enough for 2 bags when I can get away with 1. 2, this is now loaded with beneficial bacteria for being in a cycled aquarium. So it'll help me jumpstart the cycle. And I could put some snails in there right away and start feeding the tank right away to get some, the filter cycled and actually really get kind of a head start on all that stuff. So that'll help us there. But for now, while these are very slowly and painfully filling up, we will start working on our plumbing here, which is just air tubing and T-fittings. And these are the regulators. So basically all it's going to be is a sponge filter in each, and basically a line of air tubing going across the top, but with a T on each tank, dropping a line down through a regulator into the tank. So I have flow control on every single tank. And then the line is just plumbed right into here, coming all the way across the ceiling from our pump. And the line's already running, and it has plenty of flow. So not worried so much about that. So let's get started with the plumbing, and I'll check back in and show you what it looks like. All right, so here's what I came up with, guys. And keep in mind that they're mounted on the front, so this is mirror image. So when I put them on the back, this end, which is gonna hook up to our air pressure coming in, will be on this side, so it can feed in from that line. But pretty simple here. I did it all for probably about $10 to $15 on Amazon. Okay, so remember, the pressure line will be coming in here into a T with a pressure regulator controlling the flow to this one. All the excess pressure will go here through that regulator to this one, through that regulator to that one, and then this one's on its own regulator at the end. But I cut this to size where I could throw another T here and then do the same thing on a 5th tank or a 6th tank if we decide to. And that's about as simple as we're going with this filtration here. It's going to be really all we need. So as you can see, the water is getting a little bit cloudy, but not too bad as we're filling it here. It's getting late at night, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to fill these tanks up. I'm going to leave them sit overnight, and then tomorrow, bright and early, we will get all these filters running. Everything should be up to temp, and then we could put the rest of our gravel in the front half, finish some scaping. I'll show you how I made the lids for this for super cheap. And then I'll wrap it up for part 2. Our hardware will be completely done and we'll be ready to order plants, and then shortly after order some fish and start some breeding projects. So once we get water in there, those will stick better. I'm just glad you saw that on camera. So that shows you the struggle I was having when I was trying to get all this stuff plumbed in right. Yep, there goes the next one. They need water to stick. This one will never fall. These three will slowly fall. But anyway, I'll finish filling these up and I'll check in tomorrow. We'll have full clear tanks that we can top off with some cycle gravel, get running, and get ready for plants and fish, and we'll wrap it up then. So I will see you tomorrow. All right, guys, still the same night, and please excuse this noise here. Figured might as well, do water change on the pond while I'm sitting right above it. But there were a couple things I thought worth mentioning before I sign off for the night. Now that I got these all, filled up. And for one is fluorite here is a clay-based substrate, and yes, there is some like condensation on the glass because I filled it with really cold water, but most of that is actually kind of like clay floating in the water. You can rinse fluorite to get rid of this, but this what's floating in the water holds a lot of the iron that fluorite provides to your plants. So a light rinsing wouldn't hurt, but if you rinse it to the point where you don't get cloudy water, you're basically making it regular aquarium gravel. From the limited research I've done, I haven't really looked into it, but a few plant keepers that have looked into this and reviewed this substrate have said that. So do your own research, but that would be my suggestion. So don't heavily rinse the fluorite. 2, I'm not turning the sponge filters on until this water is clear. Because of all that clay floating around in the water, you don't want to turn your sponges to clay. They're supposed to pick up fish poop, detritus, a little bit of substrate that gets in, but like not so much that you can't rinse it out. You're supposed to be able to take the sponges out and rinse them, but if they're packed full of clay, that's probably not going to happen, and you're going to completely torch, ruin all your brand new sponge filters. And last but not least, this heater. I am not going to run the heater until this water's room temperature, because inside that heater is a metal coil surrounded by glass. That glass is room temperature, and when you submerge glass into really hot, really cold water, or changes temperature rapidly, it loses its integrity and it could crack. In some cases it's shattered. Then you're exposing a hot metal coil full of electricity to your water, which fortunately we don't have fish in here, or else it would probably kill your fish. But you also don't want to lose the money on the heater either, right? So yeah, just a couple things I thought were worth mentioning before I signed off for the night, because of course I thought of them as after I already told you I was done for the night. But so we will check in on these tomorrow. Hopefully the water's up to temp. I'm not going to put lids on it so we can let that so we don't trap any of the cold air in there. If the water's all up to temp and it's a little bit clear, we'll get that plumbing running and tune in our sponge filters a little bit, maybe throw some snails in there, finish scaping with our gravel, see what it looks like, and kind of wrap it up then. All right, guys, so here we are the next day. Everything has cleared up quite a bit, and everything is the same temperature as everything else in the fish room. So I do feel comfortable now. I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna put the heater in. I'm gonna put this gravel in the front half of these tanks. After doing that, if the water's not stirred up too much, we will plumb in the filters here, get those tuned in. I'll show you how I made my lids, and then that'll be a wrap on part 2 until we get some plants in. So I learned from the first one I did here that if I pour the gravel on top of the clay-based substrate, it'll stir it up, but the other ones turned out all right. So I am gonna go ahead and run these, but this middle one here, I'm only gonna run just a little tiny bit of flow on. And the other ones I'll put wide open, especially this one with the heater on it, so that they can get that hot water flowing throughout the tank. And we'll throw the lids on them, and I'll show you how I make those. I'll actually do that now. So this is something that you're either gonna love or you're gonna hate. But glass lids for these 4 tanks could have cost me close to $100. So instead I bought poster frames for like $5 and cut them to size. Now I'm learning how to cut the plastic still, so I did crack the edges. But yeah, this $5 poster frame got me a lid for $5. That sits right on there, and I can quickly and easily with scissors, whoop, wow, this is making it look even worse, eh? I can quickly and easily with scissors cut a hole for the air tubing, cut a feeding hole here, and then take some of the scrap plastic, like this sheet here, and then cut a lid for that hole. So I think what I did wrong is I cut it with the plastic shield on it here. And I think if I took that off, it would have cut better. But honestly, I don't really care. It's budget, like to the max, which is what I'm after. Because I'm trying to make content here without breaking the bank. And it'll keep the heat in and it'll keep the fish from jumping out. So that's really a win-win. So let me get this main air line hooked up here, and I'll tune these bad boys in. And yeah, then we'll call it a wrap on today for the part 2 of 4. Next step will be plants and then fish. All right, guys. Well, here it is. I was able to get everything up and running. Get everything plumbed in and get some lids in place, especially on the one that's heating, just because I got to keep that in there. So got to keep that warm water warm and insulated with a lid. So yeah, it was as easy as running in this existing airline I had plumbed in and just running on a sponge filter down here. Super simple. And I do got to check everything else running off that line to make sure I didn't kill the flow anywhere, but looks like this is going to work out really nice. So yeah, like I do pretty moderate flow. I mean, it's not too crazy. I found that all you really need is surface agitation, except in tanks with heaters. Tanks with heaters, I'm going to put them a little more wide open, just because I want that cold water to get through the heater like ASAP. Keep it from having warm spots or cold spots or messing with the heater. Just keep the water flowing, excuse me, really well in there. Yeah, for the most part, pretty low flow. As long as there's surface agitation, you're getting oxygen. And as long as the water's moving a little bit and rubbing across things like the substrate, these beautiful decorations that I have to keep my kids interested down here, gravel, and like across the top of the foam and stuff, as long as water's brushing across those things, you are getting filtration, because those will all build up with the bacteria that's gonna take care of the fish waste in your water. So I mean, I think this is good enough. That's how I run all my other 10 gallons. Actually, that's how I run literally every aquarium in here, except the cichlid tank over here. And all that has is a hang-on back. But everything else in here is ran just like that without issue. So that's what we did here. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? So I got to get 2 more lids cut for these. I'm going to cut some notches in these lids so that they fit like the air hose better, and probably cut some feeding holes in them. And then I'm going to be done down here for today with this video anyway. So there it is, part 2 of the planted aquarium build. Up next, part 3 is plants. Part 4 will be fish, and I do have some fun breeding projects planned for these tanks. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss out. And thanks for stopping by. You can follow along at Up North Aquatics on TikTok, or join the Facebook group Up North Aquatics Aquarium Advice and Adventures on Facebook. Let's talk fish. Let's have a good time. And if this is the content you like, please like and subscribe. The subscribers list is climbing, and I really appreciate every single one of you. It all helps out so much. And turn on notifications so you don't miss out the next one. But yeah, thanks for stopping by.